Globally as well from the investor point of view, keeping in mind financial inclusion, keeping in mind fintech and those aspects, right? So we can just do it as a roundtable. Some of the aspects may not be relevant to your startup, doesn't matter, or to your investor point of view, but we can still talk about it. So the first question or the first discussion point would be is that technology. It's also about technology. And India is a huge country with huge opportunities, but a lot of underserved populations, right? I mean, for example, while you're looking at teenagers, etc., and you are looking at how people can really not lose out on money. Family money should not just go down the drain or something. So, keeping those aspects in mind, I'll pass on the mic. Just talk about very focused aspects which will help the audience. You know, there are startups, there are investors, and of course, the portfolio companies of Aftonia is also here.
Right. So I can sort of touch upon like a couple of aspects on how technology has assisted us in including different segments of a family into the conversation of money. Right. I think that's also an important part of financial inclusion in itself. So when we started off in about 2021, the entire conversation within a family was never about how do we sort of plan an inheritance. It was more about how do we take care of the disputes of an inheritance. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you would have had someone in the family go through something like this. And the interesting thing what we built out was a platform wherein we now have a family share ecosystem for financial data to be shared amongst family members. Now what we've observed is that in the conversations that we've had with all of our customers, what sort of helps is that having that controlled conversation saying that, okay, this is the kind of data that, this is the kind of financial wealth that, let's say if I'm an earning member, this is what I have today. And this is the amount of information that I want to share with each of you, right? And that conversation in itself, getting the family together, getting them on a table and saying that, okay, this is the wealth, this is what I have, this is what I don't have. It's a very simple way of saying that how can technology sort of help in financial inclusion in that sense. Now, of course, there are many other ways in which you can have AI, you can have a lot of other, I'm sure, technologies do this. But the idea is just to say that very simple technology can also make a huge impact if it's just done the right way. So that's just my two big things.
Okay, now talking about technology, right? In India right now we have 27% financial literacy rate, and that is the main reason why everybody is focusing on fintech companies, how to improve the life of underserved people. With a similar thought, I started Funro in 2021, saying that normally in Indian homes, right, we do not talk about money. It was a taboo, maybe 15 years back, not right now. And today things have changed, but changed in the other direction, saying that 15, 17-year-old have ample opportunities to spend money. May it be food apps or may it be buying something. So that's how that idea came to my mind that, okay, if I want entire India, especially people sitting in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, they don't know what they can do with respect to their skills. They don't know about money. If you talk about our investment pattern 15 years back, it was mostly FDs and all. With Zerodha and all coming up into picture, people started talking about mutual funds, and today where we stand. So that's how it changed. So if we educate 15, 17-year-old about money, things after 10 years will be very different, and that's what we are doing at Funro. So where teenagers are coming through technology, we are giving them the earning opportunities based on their skills. You as a teenager identify, instead of just going or browsing internet for some activities which are of no use, make use of those. If you like browsing internet, do something for yourself. If you are earning money, then only you will think about investing money. So ours is a very practical approach, no gyan that, okay, you should know about investment, you should know. Unless and until you have money, you will not think about saving or investment. So that's how through Funro we are educating young India, and within a span of 1 year we reach to 12 lakh people, and that in itself is a very big example that people need financial literacy. So that's the thing, through technology.
So,
I think they have done a great job in explaining what they do actually. Now over to you.
So I have two stories to this. One is personal story and the other one is what we are doing at Capital A. Personal story is that I'm a technologist, worked in Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, UBS for 12 odd years, and then I started my startup in 2016. First time entrepreneur, raised funds 3 times and exited in 2022. And it was nothing to do with the previous jobs what I used to do. It is into food manufacturing, quality, with ingredients for children. So I went through 6 years of understanding what is a startup, raising funds, spending money, exiting, and all of those things. And at that time, I joined Capital A, and that's where I realized that all the learnings and all the steps what I went through should not go waste, and it can be put on use. And if you see all of this, the underlying story is this information of like how you go about doing things is not uniformly distributed. It is in pockets. Some have the privilege of knowing it, and some have the privilege of understanding it within the family. So I thought I will reduce the gap, at least go to the as many founders as possible, touch their journeys and be part of it, and then enjoy the rest of my working experience. So that's the personal story of it. That's the inclusion or the gap reduction I want to provide. Coming to Capital A, and as an investor looking at opportunities, I mean, if India wants to do 10 trillion, 12 trillion in the future, everyone in the country has to contribute. It cannot be a set of people doing it. I mean, great we have reached so far, but the rest of the crowd has to come in. And the fastest way when you can bring everyone together is through technology. If I don't identify a person, then it's as good as that person is not in the equation at all, right? So getting financial literacy, getting bank accounts to each and everyone at ease, getting them understand where their expenditure is going and where their incoming is happening through payments and whatever is happening currently are a great example of how we are including people. Long way to go, but that's the first step I feel that we can add more people into the equation and work together.
Thank you so much, Ashwini.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I got
No,
lost.
relax. No, don't worry, this happens, right? So what we're saying is that keeping in mind, of course, India and globally, because you have been doing a lot of work outside, you have worked with large companies, technology, how can it address the gap that we are facing as a country in terms of financial inclusion? We talked about how teenagers should get money, we talked about all the government schemes that are there. What are the barriers and how can those barriers be bridged? If some examples come to your mind or your observations as you're meeting so many startups and you've been mentoring startups as well. So that's what we would love to hear from you, Santosh. Thanks.
No, and someone else brought up the point about trends as well, right? So this sort of all fits in together to me. Like I feel like here now. I feel like majority of the, especially with the new wave of AI and things coming in, not to make it specifically about AI, but the general trend has been that there's 3 categories in which I see things moving and things changing, right? So one is, I call this product personalization category. Things are getting a lot more personal at an individual level, whether it's credit score, lending process, whether it's training a language model for an insurer, all of these are getting very narrow and unique for each individual, right? So that's one thing. And the second, and you could see this across the board, right? People are talking about how do I create an insurance product based on your behavior? How do I create a lending process, credit score specifically? All of this sort of feeds into the inclusion narrative. Number 2 is how do I get more access to information to people in a way that they could consume it? This is where the AI really plays in, because as you talk about language models and different sort of AI going on, the language models are getting smaller and it's getting multimodal, which means it understands voice, it can process images, videos, all of that, and it's getting smaller. The smaller it gets, the better it fits into a bucket and people have better access to it. They don't need to read, they can listen, they can talk. More modality helps them, right? Like that's number 2, and there's lots of startups in this space as well. Number 3 is learning, right? Language models, especially the ChatGPT type of models, have fundamentally changed, are going to change how learning happens, right? It changed for me, right? Like I learn everything through the interactive process of like asking questions to an assistant type of model, and that's going to get
vibe, right? Like it's going to go, even people in rural places with no access to internet should be able to learn about concepts in a very natural and intuitive way, like you would talk to someone else, right? So all the work that I'm doing fits into one of these three buckets, primarily the number 2 and number 3 bucket, right? So how do I get more access to information to MSMEs, or how do I make these local businesses discoverable? That's one passion of mine and I'm working in there. And the second thing is, how do I make things very personal, right? Like if you have a problem in a company that you're struggling with and you're spending a lot of time accessing information, you shouldn't. Right? You should be able to create a model on the fly really quickly and deploy it and use it, right? So these are the two places and trends I see, and it's not just me. Like most startup I speak to sort of fit into one of these three categories, and super exciting time to be, working in this space, right? So it's a great time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Santosh. And now I'll come to two ladies and gentlemen. So see, here we're sitting in Estonia. We're also working with the various mentors, and the last 1.5 days has also been about that. So what are the barriers that you are facing? Okay, it could be cultural barriers, it could be access to customers in your startup, and also how you're working around it, right? And if you could also give some success stories where you had a challenge, but you managed to come out and whatever way that you use. Number one. Number two is, since we have an audience here, and you know that there are fellow startups or founders whom you could collaborate with, and there are people from the banks, there are people from the investment world also. What are your asks of how you think you can work with them? Make sense? Right? So that's for them. And Ashwini, what I would like you to think about and talk about is, which you know from the back of your head, obviously, your startups, who you are working with, who are doing some great work in this space, and what kind of startups are you looking to fund for the future? Okay, so you can prepare with that, and then Santosh, I'll come to you.
Alright. So, I think there are 3 parts to the question.
Sorry to make it tough, no?
It's interesting because all 3 of them sort of link as well. So when you look at it from an inclusion perspective, right? So let's say you've built like a great technology, right? Like you've built a great product now, right? Like for example, you say that, okay, I've built like a very seamless operation service, you've built a very seamless platform. But the biggest challenge that you face, and especially what we faced initially, is first the fact that people don't even know what an inheritance product is. Like when we started off, this is a question to everyone in the audience, right? That how many of us actually knew that there was a gap in the inheritance market in the first place, right? Like none of us really thought, hey, you know what, something is not right when our family is actually going to a chartered accountant or a lawyer and getting things done, right? None of us really thought about it. But what we realized is that it was a problem. It was what they say, a silent problem, right? Like these are problems which people don't really know about until they know that there is a solution out there. So for us, that was the most important thing. The biggest challenge that we faced was, how do we even go to a customer and say, hey, you have a problem in the first place? When they're going through like an emotional crisis, when you're going through like a, not so happy, not so seamless time, right? Or none of us are going through like a good time when someone in our family passes away, right? So that was the biggest challenge. And imagine at the time of COVID, like that was like everything all coming together, and everyone was like, how do we really sort of manage this? And it's a personal story. Like even I had gone through a very similar challenge. Like I had lost my grandmother at that time. So for us, it was a very close sort of understanding as to how the process was also working. Now, how did we tackle that? The interesting part was so in India, we all know there are only 2 things that work, right? It's either sports or it's either celebrities or it's either brands, right? Like most of us in India are either attracted to that sort of a phenomenon. So we were very clear that we just wanted to work. We did not have the funds to go out there and say that, hey, we are going to go to every customer door to door and solve a problem for them, because realistically, we didn't even know who to find in the first place, right? So we said, let's just test out by having conversations with the COVID resources app, right? So we said that there were these COVID resources app. I don't know if you all remember this, but there were a lot of COVID resources, local COVID resources app, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Gujarat, and all of that. So we said, we'll go to you guys and we'll put you, if you can help us, just advertise this out. right? Saying that this is a service that's out there. And you will not believe, within 24 hours, we had 1400 hits on our website. And this is peak COVID, everyone just searching for a service. Like, I was down with COVID second wave. I was managing ambulance calls. Like, I was like, can you please go and service an ambulance? Can you help someone close a bank account? Can you help someone with an insurance claim? I mean, these were real problems. So at that time, we realized that this is a service that can actually be made, right? From an idea to a service, to the problem, to how we use technology. Now comes the, how do we sort of build for it, right? Like, what is it that we identify as gaps? Then we realized that, okay, it was very clear that there is now a problem which people are facing. And we did some research. So, just to how Payal mentioned about statistics, in India there is 1.5 lakh crore. 1.5 lakh crore that is lying unclaimed. That's almost one IPL. That is lying unclaimed in bank accounts and financial institutions. And that is over the last 10 to 12 years. And another statistic is that in India, it takes about 4 to 12 years for a family to get money after the death of a loved one in the family. Now imagine, like, let's say something happens to me today, my family is going to spend 4 years struggling for my assets. I mean, the funny part is, I may not have that many, like, crores of assets as of now, for example, but imagine a family member that already does, right? Like, even if you have like 20 lakhs, like for rural inclusions, 10 lakhs, 5 lakhs, like, imagine the amount of time they are going to spend, and they are definitely going to spend more time than an average urban middle class or an urban upper class, individual. So for us, it was very clear that we had to service not just the urban population, but we also had to service that kind of population. So now coming to your third point as to, I'm sorry, could you just repeat that? Oh yeah. Yeah, and just to highlight like success stories. So over the past 1 year since we have launched officially into the market, we have now, currently we work with 450,000 families across India. So that's 4.5 lakh people. And we have, the way we went through this is now to answer the point about sports and cricket and all of that. We sort of started working with companies to include this as part of their employee benefit programs. Now imagine all of you, I'm sure, work for some company, right? Or you have your own company for that matter. Wouldn't you want your employees, who you think to be as part of families, or you as an employee, who you think your company to be a part as, your second family in most cases, wouldn't you want that as a benefit for you guys, right? Or for your extended family members. So that's how we went. So currently we work with some of the top brands in the world. You must have heard, we can't really mention it as of now because we are under non-disclosures. But we work with Ultrahuman, we work with L&D Technologies, and a couple of more. So that's how we sort of went and tackled the challenge of distribution. Now coming to the point of what we would like from the audience, the first thing we would love if you could, I personally would love it if you have such a need which you feel, so you have to be very honest about it. And if you feel that that is a need within you, you can most likely reach out to me and help me reach out to your company that's out there, right? Because we would not just like to be a part of the conversation with you, but we would also like it to be for the people who you work with as well. So that's number one, that I would love for that to happen. And second is, you can let me know what are the problems that you faced, right? I'm sure you would have all gone through some or the other issue in your life, having met, like, you would have had some issue in your family wherein you would have had some death or something like that. So if you have any such issue, you can feel free to reach out to me. So yeah, that's it. Sorry for taking a bit of time.
That was a great insight. Now, as a founder, we all know this. Most of us are founders here, right? We are on a... So, it's a roller coaster for us. So, there are many challenges which we get. And the good part with Fungrow was, I was always, and I am always in touch with my customers. So, when I started Fungrow, it was a different story. It was a chores-based management kind of thing, where parents are supposed to give money to the kids saying that, okay, perform some activity, do well in studies, and money was going into their card. That was the initial take. We issued prepaid card also to them. But when a 15, 16-year-old was coming to us, I was personally talking to kids from remote areas, person sitting in say Hubli or Jammu or somewhere. They were very clear, especially tier 2, tier 3 boys. Papa se paisa nahi chahiye. Let us know how to make real money, and that is where we pivoted. The important thing is we have to identify the problem and make a change immediately. We did that, and since then there was no looking back. Whenever we talk about that, okay, how teams are important, each one of us say, yeah, 15, 16, 17-year-olds are very smart, they are full of innovation. The challenge which we faced initially before Shark Tank happened with us, companies wants to work with teenagers, but at the same time they have some trust issues saying that whether that person will be committed or not. So that is where we are working towards. We have 2,700 companies who agreed that okay, we will give them the work and they are giving us the repeat work also. So that is where things change after Shark Tank. Funro is a trusted name now and we are getting the opportunities, and I request each one of you to identify, it can be anything. So the question comes to any founder or companies, what work a teenager can do. Teenager, I'm talking about 14 to 25-year-old. They can do everything. May it be your social media, any content creation, website development, research, sales, brand promotion, all those activities are given to them and they are doing phenomenally well there with respect to the innovation they are bringing, and they are cost effective also. If personally I talk about the success stories, there are hundreds of teenagers who are reaching out to me and saying how their things changed. A person sitting in Hyderabad who just lost his father 4 months ago came to me, said that okay, I have earned 25,000 from you and now I want to earn more. I'm ready to learn. So that is how inclusion is making a difference, that person who was earning 25,000 have now reached to 75,000. Girl sitting in Jammu got the admission in Ashoka University because of the exposure she had with us. There are many case studies like this wherein because of the technology we reached out to remote areas. These people are coming, doing the work, spending the time in the right manner and learning out of it. So that's the story for me. Have I included all the points here?
You did a great job.
Yeah. What I want from them is to give us the opportunities to make sure that you get these people on board and see the difference. Because each one of can't hire every time. So gig work, as he was also saying, Vipul was also mentioning, right? So there are many things which government as an initiative is also doing for gig workers, and especially for this specific age group if we talk about. So it's not only about earning for teenagers, we are also into learning, wherein we are associated with ministries like MESC, which is Media and Entertainment Skill Council. We are giving the Skill India certification to these teenagers. So they are building the profile and making themselves ready for the future. Yeah.
Thank you. Vijay, just to reiterate the questions what you asked, you are asking
Your portfolio.
not portfolio.
Your portfolio is important.
Yeah.
So you should also talk about maybe some of the work that is being done by your portfolio, and what kind of startups are you looking for. And since you have also worn an entrepreneur hat a few years back and then you came into Capital A, are there some examples of barriers that you faced that you think have changed in the last few years maybe?
Sure. I mean, I'll go from first. We discussed about inclusion and having everybody on the same page, or having access to capital, or having access to opportunities equally, right? We are looking at startups, or we are talking to startups who are getting the people who are having no credit score or having credit score which is not great. Give them credit, because credit is very important for a country of our size at where we are to grow. So it's not possible that we will not give credit but everybody grow. That doesn't work. Economy also has to develop, then credit is also important. So finding models of how you underwrite these loans or lending functions where the NPAs are minimum. At the same time, people who are borrowing and who are coming into the system of credit are responsible and understand the value of why they are getting it and what responsibility is there on them, so that they have this particular liberty or the function or the opportunity what they have. So we are looking into those startups, and especially that's one area. Like basically how to reduce NPA so that it's not like giving you the money, right? Giving you the money, I can give you 10 billions in 10 minutes, but you should get the money back. So having the NPAs under control, having the early warning signals achieved in a systematic way, making sure that someone would default or someone is not going to have the EMI or something paid on time, that kind of system in place, at the same time not be a burden. So a complex scenario, but this is what is required, and there are startups working in this, and tech plays a big role in this. The second thing is the amount of time to process these requests is huge, especially in the tier 2, tier 3 rural areas. We are working with startups where a file processing would take 30 days, is reduced to 30 minutes or 3 minutes. Secondly, if it takes 30 days, just imagine one person traveling to a bank or a lender and spending money 3,000 rupees or 4,000 rupees to receive 1,000. It's a big percentage. You don't realize it, but over a period of time, like a month, you are spending it. But if you have systems and if you have startups working to process these files just by charging 100 or 200 rupees and can be done on a mobile, that will be great. So those are the ones which will accelerate inclusion, which will accelerate the cost of raising funds, and also publicize like what are the opportunities available by government or lenders to everybody who can achieve in those areas. Particularly in our portfolio ecosystem, we have Aspire, which does credit cards for all the gig workers, professionals like plumbers, electricians, and so on and so forth, because they know where they are spending the money, like in paint shops or electricians. Second, the money is also coming into the account, so they know how they are performing, so that their credit and the availability of cash can be increased. We also have Credit Fair in our portfolio, which does sustainability like solar and various other renewable power financing, because if you have a Chucky unit and if you are outside of the grid, you can actually, with solar, you can start having more margins for work what you're doing and not rely completely on the electricity. So these are the ones, and obviously anyone, we are working on with few startups for the rural agri loan based as well. So that's the investment and portfolio view. Personally, I mean, running a business is tough. I'm sure all the founders here and investors agree with me. I never knew the fact or the phrase ease of running business before I started business. You read it in newspapers, you see the rankings floating in social media, like what is the ease of running, doing a business in Karnataka or India or US or whatever it is, right? After that, I understood like you have to remember TDS dates, you have to remember GST dates, you have to remember annual filings. It's a mess. Having founder communities and having founder interactions is very important, because a founder's pain only a founder can understand. You can't go and talk to your wife or your father or mother or friends who are working elsewhere. They really can't relate it, right? You can't say at 3 o'clock saying that I will have a GST filing to do, I'm going away. So they may not understand it. So putting a group of founders, especially having someone from the law and someone from the CA background, is very important. Accounting is different from CFO, please understand that. We can talk offline what's the difference about that. So these are the ones what I learned in the first 3 years, which actually are helping me even in the current job, right? Documentation, legalities, accounting standards, all of those. So that is something what I have learned through my entrepreneur days. What I would request from the crowd here is, if you are in a fintech startup and if you are in any deep tech or any other kind of startups, do reach out to me. We can definitely have a chat. Yeah, did I cover all of it?
Covered everything, Ashwini. Thank you so much.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you think about, so there are two questions I think. When you're talking about the thesis that you guys are going after, it sounded to me like you're going after the ease of capital allocation, right? Like access to capital. That's one part, and making sure everybody has equal opportunity to access that, and also reducing the inefficiencies in that. Did I catch that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, we are not particularly going after that. I'll give an example. These are the trends which are happening, right? I mean, if you go 7-8 years back in the fintech world, it was all the payment gateway way, right? I mean, how to do payment, how you can easily do a payment, can I embed something here, can I capture somewhere? So after that, the lending trend started. I mean, can I lend X person, can I lend Y person, the difference on the TG, difference on the amount you disperse. So that's the trend which is going on. but this trend will continue. What will, I mean, like, I'll come to EdTech also, but this trend will continue because to reach where we are compared to the level where we are with other countries, there is a lot of opportunity where it is underutilized or underserved. So to serve this, which is not even visible now, everyone should be included. So for that, the tech, the ease and the access, all of those are important.
So technology will play a role, and that's what we're not talking about here, right? Because the 1.5 billion people, I think 80% is still not really gone to a middle class level. So we have a massive roadmap ahead of us, honestly.
No, that makes sense to me. So I was sort of getting that thread. I wanted to confirm if I was hearing it right. And the second thing I was going to ask you was, when you think, because I grew up here and I moved to the States, 15, 20 years ago. When I grew up, startup is not a thing that was there, right? Like I feel like over the years I've been coming to the US, it's changing. But this time I feel like there is a whole new buzz.
I think 1 lakh, right? What are the statistics now? More than 1 lakh startups
I
registered.
would love for you to touch upon like when you started, because you were an Indian-based startup, yeah? India-based startup? Or
India-based startup, but I was
Karnataka, India-based, yeah.
So, okay, personal question, but I'll still answer it. So I left India in 2003. Went to US, worked there for a couple of years, and then went to London for like 10 odd years. 2014, 15ish, I came to India, and I did my startup in 2016. The fundamental reason to come to India is whenever I used to visit India every 6 months. I had teams here, Pune, and other places. Looking at the population, I always used to feel like, oh my God, so much of opportunity. People go and shop in second floor and third floor, not in a mall, in general normal stores as well. So I thought a huge opportunity, and that's the reason which prompted me to start a startup. What is happening is now in India, to answer your question on why so much of startup fever. This is the story what I used to tell myself, right? Engineering, did decent in job, have some savings, wife is working. If not me, who will start? Right? I mean, because you should come away from risk averseness. And that is what happened in the US as well. The more you are risk averse, the number of startups will come. Obviously, in that 1%, 0.5% will succeed, and those will become the $1 trillion companies and $1 billion companies. That's what happened in the US. The same thing would happen in India, because before to tell that you are working for a startup was a taboo, as in maybe you will not get married.
You're irresponsible.
Yeah, you may not have a job in like a year or so. Then you are saying that you are starting a startup is still a difficult task, right? But those things are going away because a lot of people are getting into startups, working, and a lot of
opportunity also. Like funding is there, customers are there.
Yeah, I mean those are now, but in pre-2013, pre-2016, it was far less.
Very less.
So that wave is going up. A lot more people, parents, community, social status is kind of getting sorted when you say that you are working for a startup or you started something. So that's the roti kapda makan is sorted, so you are able to take it.
Good. So thank you for being so candid and sharing this, right? Fantastic. So Santosh and team, what we'll do now is we'll just reset the room. Everything going good, folks? Anything that is missed out? Is there something that's very special? We want, how many more minutes do we have? 10, 15 minutes more? How much time? 15 minutes more, right?